where there's been a second blast at the Fukushima nuclear plant. As of now, 11 people were injured in the explosion. The reactors are said to be intact at the moment, and officials claim that there has not been a change in the radiation level since the latest incident took place. Well, at least 22 people have already been exposed to radiation after an earlier explosion following Friday's devastating tremor and tsunami. Officials say the possibility of another blast is now unlikely. Well, people within a 20-kilometer radius of the reactor have been evacuated to safety. There had been warnings of a 3-meter-high tsunami moving towards the northeast coast of Japan, caused by a strong aftershock. We're now getting reports that the alert has been lifted. Prime Minister Naoto Kan has called it the worst crisis since World War II. RT's Ivor Bennett is in Sendai, one of the towns worst affected by the huge wave.
We don't know the full extent of the damage of that second blast in the third reactor at the Fukushima power plant number 1. But the initial reports are that the actual reactor itself, the vessel containing the radioactive materials, isn't damaged. That's what Japanese media is reporting. However, the explosion was so powerful that one of the walls surrounding the reactor has collapsed. But we don't know the full extent of the damage. We don't know how much radiation is escaping either. But if the vessel itself is intact, which it seems to be, according to Japanese media, then it's not the full-scale nuclear catastrophe that was feared earlier today. As soon as it was reported on Japanese radio, as soon as I heard it in the taxi I was in, coming back from the coast, immediately afterwards the advice was to stay inside. But just half an hour ago, we were at the coast witnessing the destruction and the devastation that's there as a result of the first tsunami, when we actually got told by police there we got shouted at and ordered to drive back to safety as soon as possible and to reach high ground, because there were reports of another tsunami approaching. We didn't know how long we had, but the first tsunami only took 9 minutes to reach the coast after the first earthquake. So there was panic there. The police were shepherding people out as fast as possible.
Well, here in Sendai, there's no panic actually on the coast. Here, the panic is being shown by people lining up outside supermarkets. One queue we saw outside the main supermarket in the centre of town was about 1 kilometre long, and that's no exaggeration. People have been queuing up overnight to try and stock up on food. So people are obviously concerned that potentially the spread of radiation might mean they have to stay inside, or another earthquake could lead to food shortages. Already there are food shortages in the town and in this whole prefecture. In fact, one man yesterday we met had to travel 70 kilometres to stock up on food, and right now several of the food shops are limiting people to 5 items maximum, and they're having to queue up hours at a time to get into the shop. So obviously there is some level of panic. People aren't showing it on the surface, but they're definitely concerned, to be so much so they're stocking up on food and also fuel. On our way here, last night we saw a long queue of cars, again about 1 kilometre long, outside one of the few petrol stations that were open in the Fukushima prefecture, and there they were only being limited to 20 litres each of petrol. So there's definite fears of just here of the necessities. The authorities, the army, troops and police, Tokyo police even as well, are lining the streets, going to the coast. They're heading people off there, saying people can't make their way. We were trying to get there to film pictures of the devastation caused by the tsunami 3 days ago, and every sort of 200 meters or so there were police diverting us, telling us to go back. And as soon as they heard of the warning of tsunami, they were literally shouting at us and chasing us back to the center, and there were police buses picking up independent travelers there who were on foot, and other people who had come back to find their houses and try and retrieve what they could following that first tsunami, only to now find that they may indeed lose what they have left anyway. The damage is absolutely complete. You don't get a real feel for it until you actually see it, until you actually get to the coast, those worst hit areas. The tsunami completely wiped out everything in its path. It's very clear that, and it reached 8 kilometers inland, and that was just in 9 minutes following the earthquake. it must have been an absolutely incredible force. We wiped out trees, buildings. There are cars floating in what appears to be an inland sea there. It's absolutely devastating. You don't fully understand it and don't fully realize the power that it must have wielded until you actually see these pictures. And we saw people sifting through the remains of what was their house. There were boats as well and beach skidoos that had been washed up 7 kilometers inland. So clearly the damage is vast. But inland, there are a few buildings damaged. In the center of the city, things functioning pretty much as normal in terms of infrastructure. Buses now I can see on the road, they're starting to run their operations, but trains are still not, out of fears of aftershocks and potentially another tsunami.